Howdy there, folks. Just got back from California. Spent the weekend in Southern California, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach area, and want to tell you what I found. I saw some very interesting things. Let me put it that way, okay? In regards to Tesla, in regards to Rivian, we'll talk about economic activity in this video. At the end of the video, I definitely want to speak about, obviously, the debt ceiling stuff, what that means for a market. I know a lot of people wanted my opinion. Like, does this mean we're going to skyrocket the stock market this week? Are we going to have kind of a flattish week? Could we actually be down this week? And so I want to kind of share some perspective in regards to that. I know it's an important subject that everybody's kind of keeping an eye on right now. So appreciate you joining me. Thanks for being subscribed. I appreciate y'all as always. And by the way, if I'm a little slower in today's video, it's because I was just at the beach for the weekend. You know, you go to Southern California, you kind of move a little slower. You talk a little slower. It's just, it's that vibe. I could never live down there just for the mere fact that it's like, I wouldn't want to do any work. I'd just like retire and just, chill out. I mean, it's a different vibe. I live in Vegas, so, Vegas always has that energy. Everybody's coming, bringing that energy. It's just a vibe of the city. But out in Southern California, man, just chill. First off, what happened to the sunshine? I mean, I went out there, I got this room overlooking the ocean. I was like, oh, it's going to be awesome, man. And I never saw the sun, I think, other than maybe 10 minutes the whole trip. And that was when it was setting the first day we were there. I was like, well, does the sun not shine in California anymore? Like, what's going on? First off, in terms of economic activity that I saw, okay, and remember, I was just in kind of Laguna Beach area, Newport Beach area. What I saw personally was everywhere was busy. Okay, now it's all anecdotal. It should be busy. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's beach cities. Like everywhere is going to be busy. Restaurants going to be busy. Economic activity. Nothing. It doesn't matter what the economic situation is. Those places should always be busy. Outside of Rona, when they were like having the shutdowns and the limits and all that stuff, and a ton of restaurants were closed. And I did go actually to Southern California in the summer of 2020. And that's the only time I ever saw it like not busy really out there. Other than that, it's always going to be busy. It's always going to seem busy regardless of kind of what's going on out there. So that's just what I saw. Everywhere was packed. Okay. Now, I went to a mall. This is in kind of like Newport Beach, Newport Coast area. And this was very interesting. So RH is building a massive store in Newport Beach, which I think is brilliant. Okay. This is going to have a wine bar. It's going to have this massive rooftop restaurant. I can't wait till that thing opens. I'm going to definitely go to it. It's supposed to open at some point in 2024. You might say, well, why do they spend so much money? Like why put a restaurant on top of the place? And, why have this wine bar and everything like that? And never mind that location's got to be extremely expensive. You got to attract people with money. And, I've been to the one in Marin, which is outside San Francisco, as far as RH that has a restaurant on top. And I went to the one in Charlotte, North Carolina that has a restaurant on top. And I can tell you, food was great. Service was great. It was, definitely a more high-end experience. And so I think it's brilliant. I think all that type of stuff is brilliant that RH is doing. You got to attract those sorts of customers and that clientele, okay? Lucid. Did see a Lucid store, those Lucid stores, there's not very many of them, but I did see one at that Newport Mall. It had one worker in it, and if I recall, it had 0 customers in it. So it doesn't surprise me. Lucid's just in a really bad spot. Just to be quite frank, it just doesn't seem like there's much demand for Lucid. And when you don't have much demand, I mean, in your company that you need massive production to get to profitability, they just don't have it. And they're in a bad place right now. Saw the Tesla store. I was probably the most workers I ever saw in a Tesla store in my entire life. I was actually amazed at that. Now, in regards to Tesla, I got to say, it was insane driving around Southern California. And the reason being is, Tesla sell amazing in California. Like, California is always like Tesla's number one market, right? I can tell you out here in Vegas, Tesla's very popular. Probably one of the other most popular markets. But there's a whole different stratosphere in terms of popularity in California. And, if you maybe live in the Midwest, if you maybe live on the East Coast, you maybe don't see as many Teslas. They're kind of a rarity, okay? I can tell you what I saw personally driving around Southern California is Tesla looks like it's the most popular vehicle of any brand out there. I mean, it is insane. Like, I'll be at a light and it's like Tesla, 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 behind that Tesla, side of that Tesla, Tesla. I mean, it's just insane. And it's like, is this just a Tesla city? Like what is going on here? But that's insane. And so when you see these numbers, right, top selling passenger cars in California in 2022, Model 3, right, taking the cake there. You obviously see, they put it into the light trucks category, right? Model Y, most popular. You see the numbers And it's cool to see that. But I can tell you, nothing is like being there in person and just seeing like how much market share Tesla's taking. I mean, Teslas were so rare a few years ago, right? It was rare to see them on the roads. Even in Southern California, you go back 4 or 5 years ago, you might see a few Teslas here and there, but they're pretty rare. And now it's just like flood of Teslas. And I can tell you, it's not going to stop. It's just going to be more and more and more. And it's just, when you go out there, man, you really realize the market share Tesla's taking. It is epic market share. And look at this. I don't know if you guys saw this, okay? This is crazy, okay? Tesla's Model Y California sales increased 46% in Q1 2023 versus Q1 2022, right? And it's, for what I also saw out there, is it's just Model Y is really the one that's dominating. Yes, did I see a lot of Model S's? For sure. Model X's for sure. Model 3's for sure. But nothing like the Model Y. It seems like Model Y is just like, it's insane to see how well that's selling. I mean, just phenomenal. When you see it in real life, it just hits you on a different level, and you just realize, my gosh, like, this company's really doing it, man. They're really doing what I thought they would do, and it's actually hitting, right? Now, another really fascinating thing, and we know obviously California is always going to be the most popular pretty much in terms of EVs, right? But I got to say, guys, I saw a lot of Rivian trucks out there. I mean, a lot of Rivian trucks. I see them every once in a while in Vegas, but not too overwhelming. But man, driving around Newport Beach, Laguna Beach area, I can tell you, a lot of Rivians out there, right? And in terms of Rivian, obviously they've been skyrocketing in production. They're still in low volume relatively, right? But they are skyrocketing in the numbers at hundreds of percent in terms of deliveries and production. And so Rivian, I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to put up some pretty big numbers. Now, in regards to Rivian, if you think Rivian's going to be successful over time, there's different ways you can play this, okay? You don't need to buy Rivian stock. It's obviously a pretty substantial risk to just buy the stock. If you think Rivian's going to thrive and you want to play it but without playing a stock, it's very simple. Buy Amazon, okay? And if Rivian thrives over the coming years, guess what? It's just going to be another thing to help out Amazon, right? And it's never going to be a game changer for Amazon, whether Rivian's a huge success or failure over time. But it could be something that certainly helps them, because do keep in mind, Amazon, last time I checked, Amazon owns between 15 and 20% of the entire Rivian company, okay? Now, Ford did sell out from what I saw recently. So if you're thinking about playing Rivian stock in terms of, playing it through Ford, it doesn't look like that's a possibility. So the only real ways to play Rivian, it looks like, is either you buy Rivian stock straight up if you think they're going to be a huge success, or you just buy Amazon stock. And so, I actually am a believer of Rivian. I actually do think they're going to succeed over time. I've looked at their SUV, and I can tell you, if Tesla didn't offer the Model X, I would actually buy the Rivian SUV for my family if the Model X didn't exist, because Model Y is just a little too small with having 3 kids, in my personal opinion. Everybody can have a different opinion on that. But yeah, so I am a believer in Rivian. And if you didn't know, they also have the massive orders. You guys might even be seeing these around some of your neighborhoods now at this point in time. But Rivian makes a lot of or basically all the EV prime vehicles now at this point in time. So you kind of distinctive look when it comes to them. So and I can tell you, out here in Vegas, we have a lot of them now. Actually, I say the majority of Amazon vehicles I see personally now driving around are like Rivian ones. And so they do have that kind of, that's amazing for not just Amazon, but it's amazing for Rivian over time, because it kind of gives them like a steady business of just a stream of Amazon orders that are pretty much, at the end of the day, do you think Amazon's going to have a bigger need for more of these vans in 5 years from now than today, or less, right? I would say probably more. And so if that's the situation, obviously, Rivian's going to make a lot of money from that, right? Between producing the vehicles, plus they're going to break down over time. They're going to get too many miles over time. Amazon's going to need to order new ones, right? Now, in terms of this, though, Cybertruck's coming, right? We know by this time next year, Cybertruck's going to be already in mass production, right? And obviously, Cybertruck's expected to go into some sort of production this summer, right? And then just scale over the next 12 to 18 months after that. And so Cybertruck hitting the market is going to be bad and good for Rivian. First off, it's a competitive threat, right? There's really been no competitive threat from the truck side for Rivian. So it's like, if you want an EV and you want specifically a pickup truck, you get the Rivian. It's your only pretty much option out there, right? That is no longer the case. Now, Tesla. And so for that standpoint, it's bad. But there's something really good that comes along with this, okay? Really, really good. And that is, you're finally going to have a major other pickup truck. So in terms of this, for a while, people have considered, okay, if I want an electric car, I have, several of those options out there. Actually, a lot of those options out there, right? And obviously, we know Model 3 really dominates that. If I want an electric SUV, there's a lot of options out there. You got Model Y, you got Model X, plus you got others that are producing vehicles. But if I want an electric truck, really, the only one that people have really looked at is Rivian. And I know Ford's trying to do some stuff in that space, but I don't think people even really are paying attention to that really too well, or giving that too much attention. And so I think Cybertruck is going to overall be a great thing for EV pickup sales. And I think it's big for the electric market in general, because now it doesn't matter what type of vehicle you're trying to get. There's options out there, and several options from several different companies. Cars, certainly the most options. Pickup trucks there will be now, and then SUVs. And I think that's ultimately great. And if you're talking about getting electric vehicles to do 10 million, 15 million, 20 million sales a year, right, and really start dominating the overall auto market, at the end of the day, you're going to need pickup trucks to be there, because we know a massive amount of Americans love to drive their pickup trucks. You might not see it as much if you live in a big, big city, but I can tell you, drive around Vegas, you see it. Drive around Arizona, go to Texas, and you're going to realize how many people love pickup trucks. It's a whole different culture, okay? Whole different culture. So that's that. Now, I know it's always a popular subject, like what about homelessness? In terms of Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, you don't really see much homelessness. That's just not how those cities are really run. I mean, it's not like in any big city, you're going to have some amount of the population that's homeless. It's always been that way. It always will be that way, right? But in terms of the major homelessness that people talk about or you see, it's mainly Los Angeles and it's mainly San Francisco, where, people are saying it's out of control and whatnot. So what I personally saw in Newport Beach and Laguna Beach was nothing. Like, oh my gosh, that's if you go to LA, that's if you go to San Francisco. That's the whole different ball game. You go to those two cities. So do keep that in mind, okay? Now, in regards to the debt ceiling, right? So it looks like we're setting up pretty good, but not perfect, right? And you're seeing headlines like this: Republicans speak out against U.S. debt ceiling deal in a sign of rocky road ahead. A handful of hard right. That's an interesting. Is that hard right? That's like a new way of describing. Okay, hard right Republican lawmakers said on Monday they would oppose a deal to raise the United States a $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, in a sign that the bipartisan agreement could face a rocky path through Congress before the U.S. runs out of money next week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a candidate for the Republican 2024 presidential nomination, said that the deal does not do enough to change the fiscal trajectory. After this deal, our country will still be basically careening toward bankruptcy. And, you got to remember, Ron DeSantis is, I would say, he's probably one of the three most likely next presidents, right? Obviously Biden. Then you got DeSantis, and then you got T-Man. And so likely, I can tell you, one of those three is going to be the next president of the United States. And so you kind of expect him to say this. With him and kind of his stances and whatnot, you think he's going to come out and say, oh, this is great, such a perfect deal. Like, no, of course not. He's got to say this is a bad deal and we need to be cutting back more and those sorts of things, right? That's what you would understand. Still, backers predicted it would clear Congress before the United States runs out of money to pay its bills, which the Treasury Department says will happen on June 5th. That's soon. This thing will absolutely pass. There's no question about that, said Republican Representative Dusty Johnson, who said he had talked to dozens of fellow lawmakers. Okay. Biden said he was working the phones as well. He said it feels good. We'll see when the vote starts, he told reporters, right? So, I mean, it looks like it's probably going to go through. There's always a chance that something doesn't work out here, but I would say more likely it's going through, okay? And we'll talk about how that works for the market in just a moment. But in terms of debt, here's the deal, man. The government debt's been going up for 100 years. It's, that's just what's going to continue to happen. I mean, people think 30 trillion sounds like a lot. Can you imagine when they heard the government debt went to 1 trillion back in the 80s? Like, imagine that. Like, back then you couldn't even imagine $1 trillion. And then it went to 1 trillion, right? Then it went to 5 trillion, 10 trillion. Government debt's going to be 300 trillion someday. I hate to break it to everybody, but it will be $300 trillion someday. It's going to be $100 trillion someday. Like, This is what happens. This number you think's big today, it's not going to be big in 30 years from now or 40 years from now, okay? Hate to break it to you, that's just the way this game works, okay? No, it does, in terms of Fed funds rate, it matters so much more than I think a lot of people. And this is another reason why the Fed's going to lower interest rates as soon as they get the opportunity. Because of this right here. They'll be forced to. Remember, the Fed's basically the government, okay? The higher the federal funds rate is, the more the U.S. government has to pay or has to spend on interest payments of public debt, right? And, you've seen articles like this: rate hikes may add $1 trillion to interest on the national debt. Basically, every time the Fed raises rates, it basically costs the government, hundreds of billions of dollars. Every single time they raise the Fed funds rate. And so, like I said, as soon as inflation is seen as breaking, the Fed's going to be quick to lower rates, because at the end of the day, like I said, the Fed's supposed to be this separate entity, but at the end of the day, it's backed by the U.S. government. And by the Fed having rates high, not only does it hurt economic growth, but it also, in a major, major way, costs the government a fortune, an absolute fortune, okay? Now, in terms of inflation, we're looking really good here, folks, okay? We're down to 2.84 as far as trueflation numbers go, so which means, we're pretty much guaranteed a 3 number come the next CPI report, which will come out in just over 2 weeks from now. We're pretty much guaranteed something in the 3s, and we're going to be looking, pretty decent to the 2s before you know it here. And so that's great news. That's, in my opinion, that's the best news for the market right now. But we got to see it actually in the government numbers. But when you see a 3.3 number for the government numbers, which, I wouldn't be surprised, analysts need to start moving down their inflation predictions for this upcoming CPI. I don't know what they're looking at, but there's no way we're not going to be in the 3s. It just doesn't make sense now at this point in time. We're going to have to be something with a 3 in front of it, right? With 2s showing up shortly. Now, in terms of this whole debt ceiling thing, right? A lot of people are wondering, does this mean the stock market's going to skyrocket this week? I'm not so sure about that, okay? Here's why. If the market had got really scared of this whole situation, and we had a lot of volatility in the market, something like we had in 2011, the market was tanking, might be a different scenario, a whole different scenario, where it could have been a situation where it's like, once you got that relief of like, oh, it looks like it's going to get passed, all of a sudden you're skyrocketing, especially once it gets passed. Didn't happen this time. Look at the VIX. There's been no extreme volatility in the market. Hasn't been anything going crazy. No one's been freaking out over the debt ceiling. So I'm not expecting the stock market to skyrocket on this news when the debt deal becomes official. I'm not expecting a skyrocketing market at all. I think it's better news and not better news, but I don't know. I just don't see this whole scenario where all of a sudden the market just goes to the moon and everybody's just so excited about this, because no one freaked out over it in the first place. So what is there to flip on the other side? Now, in terms of you guys, make sure you're taking advantage of deals out there. I'm seeing a lot of dividend stocks out there, a lot of value stocks that are opportunities. A few growth stocks, PayPal specifically, I'm seeing as opportunities out there. So just continue to build your portfolios. Stay obviously focused out there. Don't get too caught up in all this crap that's always going on. Make sure you're building your positions as well as you possibly can. And, make sure you're holding your ones that you really believe in over this next 3 to 5 years. These little moves that you see sometimes where stock goes up 40, 50%. If you're in a game-changing company, you got to understand 40 to 50% is nothing. It's literally nothing. And so, AI, a lot of the bears and short sellers just saying, they're just, it's all hype, overvaluations and things like that. We'll see. What we have seen throughout history is when you're looking at a new semiconductor boom in a new space, it's usually a multi-year boom. It's not like it's a 1 quarter thing. So a lot of these bears are banking that NVIDIA is just going to have strong numbers next quarter and then it's going to be the end of it. And in reality, usually when you have one of these boom cycles, it's just the start. Like, the next year numbers are bigger. The next year numbers are even bigger. The next year numbers are even bigger. And then eventually you start to saturate the market and, growth obviously moderates and then you can actually see some numbers move down. But usually in a semiconductor situation, that's 5-10 years out. So, don't get too caught up in the whole bear narrative they're trying to point out there, because it's just that narrative has never held weight in the semiconductor space. Like, these things are usually multi-year boom cycles. So That's just something taking into account. You can choose not to buy any of those stocks that are in relation to the space, right? That's a choice you can make. But in terms of, short selling those, I get scared for people because I look at a stock like NVIDIA. People have been shorting that stock, when it went to 150, 200, 250, buying put options left and right, thinking it's going to tank. Now the stock's 300 plus. I mean, who's to say the stock's not $1,000 in a couple of years from now? I don't think anybody even has a clue of the sort of demand. No one does have a clue. If they had a clue, then everybody would have been predicting NVIDIA would have come out with $11 billion guidance last quarter. And no one had that prediction, even the most bullish bulls. That's food for thought, folks, okay? So stay focused out there, stay taking advantage of opportunities out there. Appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thanks so much. If you're looking to apply to join my private group this week, then check out the pinned comment down there. For pinned comment, I'll have that as an application. If you're looking to join us in there and apply to join us in there, find out what that's all about. That will be pinned comment down there. If you're looking to join my Patreon, see the moves I'm making in the market, plus be part of that Discord chat in there, check out the description area. Much love and have a great day.